Intentional living does not mean perfect living. It means that you are intentionally moving forward or going from glory to glory to glory. We talked about this last week, to getting to that ideal intentional living space. Hey guys, it's me, Sonya from Sonya W Coaching, and I'm super excited. If you've been with me all this time, you know what we're doing this month. We are talking about the 4 steps to intentional living. Now, last week we talked a little bit about the very first step, the bottom rung, the thing that establishes everything, and that's acknowledgement. Well, this week we're talking about living. We're talking about living by principle, and that's the second step in the 4 steps to intentional living. That stairwell of intentional living. But before I get all into the nitty gritty, let me introduce myself. Hey guys, my name is Sonya of Sonya W Coaching, where we help overwhelmed, multi-passionate women learn how to acknowledge, live, execute, and win their dreams. We're all about making dreams meet reality here at Sonya W. So, okay guys, so as you know, I've been talking about the 4 steps to intentional living. And these are the things that I take most of my clients through when we meet up. We're always talking about what are these steps to making sure that you're living your life intentionally every single day, right? And we talked about that already, right? That we 1, acknowledge, 2, we live or live by principle, 3, we execute. We execute and we transform our own lives. And then finally, we win. We win. So I am excited to really get into these things this month, actually. And this week, we're talking about living by principle. Okay? So let's get into it. What in the world could that even be, right? Well, let me get into it. We talked about last week that the very first step in intentional living is to acknowledge our dreams. Acknowledge, 1, that we are worth dreaming and that our dreams are worth it. We talked about how it's so important that we acknowledge the dreams that are inside us. Acknowledge that we are worthy enough to dream. That, there's not somebody who's more important. There's not something that's more important than what God has placed inside of us. So we have to acknowledge the dreams that God has inside. And I talked about how sometimes when we are multi-passionate people, when we do all things and we do a lot of things really, really well, we sometimes forget about our own passions. We sometimes forget about our own dreams, or we think, well, you know what, let me just go ahead and get this thing done, instead of really thinking about, well, why in the world was I placed here? What is it in me that is good, that if I do it is going to transform my life and the lives around me, right? We are worth our dreams. And then the second thing to learn is that our dreams are worth it. Yes, your dreams are worth time. Your dreams are worth taking a moment to really establish exactly what it is that you have a desire to do and put together the steps needed to make it happen. So you are worth your dreams and your dreams are worth it. Okay, so we got that base down, and we talked about that there are 6 major areas in our lives that we all should be establishing our dreams in. And those 6 areas are our relationship with God, our relationship with our health, our body, our relationship with our mind, our intellect, how are we growing intellectually, and then our relationships with our family, our friends, and our finances. Those are the 6 basic places or basic things in our lives. Everybody has a body, so we got to figure out what's our relationship with that body. Everybody has a mind. What's your relationship? Everybody has a family. I hope everybody got some friends, and everybody got money. It may not be a lot, or it may be a lot, but you have it. And definitely everybody should have a relationship with God, because He's the one who created us. So these are 6 areas in everybody's life that exist in everybody's life. And with acknowledging it, we get a chance to acknowledge those dreams and take time to say, well, what is it that I really want to see in my health, in my body, in my relationship with my family, my friends, my finances, my God, right? What is it that I really want to see in that? You have to take time to acknowledge it and to put it down on paper. Well, after you acknowledge it, it's time to live it out. It's time to live by principle. So, okay, what in the world is a principle? What could that be? Well, a principle is kind of like a value. It's the thing that you live by. Principles are defined as like laws or statutes or things that can't be moved or changed, right? So in your life, you should have principles that you live by. And it's always good to surround them by those 6 areas, right? Some people just have one sentence, one value sentence, or some people have several different statements to match up with each one of those principles. I do that. I do actually have like an overall purpose statement. I might share it one day. We'll see. I might share it with y'all. But I also have values and principle statements for each one of those areas, because I think it's important to establish exactly what you want to see in those areas. Okay. So, that purpose statement, or that thing, that kind of short sentence, and I got my notes down here, that's why I keep looking down, but that purpose statement is something, or value is a value that you live by. It's a short version of the why behind your dream. And it should give you a clear idea of what you want to establish in that area of your life. Right? So I actually have a couple of examples here that I use for that. And I'm going to give you, they're actually mine. So I'm going to share them. I know, right? I'm going to share them just so that you get an idea of what a purpose statement could look like. A purpose statement or a value statement within your life principle that you're living by, could be a scripture. It could be a quote that really resonates with you and resonates with the dream for that particular area. Or it could just be a statement that succinctly puts together your why and the dream that you want to see in your life. Okay, so that's what a value statement or a purpose statement can look like. Now let me give you a couple examples of my own. So for my intellect, or my relationship with my mind, I say that I want to be an expert in survey or project management and life coaching, and that I want to guide others in productivity principles, leadership, national survey work, and understanding God's provision and grace. So everything that I do, everything that I learn, every course that I take, every program that I become a part of, every book that I read falls into one of these areas, and in these major areas: project management, survey management, or helping people in productivity and that type of stuff, right? So everything I do in that area focuses in on that. Then for my health, it is to honor the temple God has placed me in and be an example to others of that honor. And then I list 2 verses, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 and Proverbs 31:17. So these are the things that I stand by for my health. Now, I still struggle with weight, but that's the thing, or struggle with the ideal health, but that's the thing that keeps me motivated by moving forward, right? Like, I know that my desire is to make sure that my body is a temple, right? And that I can show the world that this is how you honor the thing that God has placed us in, right? Well, that means that everything that I do for my health is tied to that. I'm figuring out, okay, what's the best foods to eat? How do I exercise? I actually re-injured my knee recently, so I had to go back into physical therapy, right? I was like, you know what? No, if I really want to see health in my body, I gotta do the work. So that is how I keep focused. Intentional living does not mean perfect living. It means that you are intentionally moving forward, or going from glory to glory to glory. We talked about this last week, to getting to that ideal intentional living space. Okay. The final one that I'll share is for my finances. So, like I told you, you should have, your 6 principles. I call my relationship with finances something a little bit different. I don't just say relationship with finances. I actually call it my wealth building and charitable giving principle, because I even wanted the name to establish what I desire. I want to build wealth so that I can give, right? So that's kind of like how I think about my stuff. And if you ever do a life plan with me, we would work through that. We will say, okay, well, do we really want to call it a relationship with finances, or do we want to call it something different, right? Like I'll go into that with you. But anyway, that's mine. And my purpose statement for my wealth building and charitable giving is that my life be a testament to God's provision and love through building wealth and giving of my resources, money, talent, and time. So for me, this building wealth one, this relationship with finances is not just money. Like, it's everything that encompasses who I am. So my desire is to give of my time, to give of my talent. That's why I do this YouTube channel, because I know that putting this stuff out there is gonna help somebody. Giving of my talent and my time, because it takes time to record and edit and do all the things for this. And then also my money. I put my money where what is the saying? I put my money where my mouth is. There we go. I was like, what's the saying? But for me, it's about giving and giving generously. It's about being able to give to the poor, to tithe, to give above my tithe, to give to family members and friends and all that kind of stuff. That is what I desire to do with my wealth building and charitable giving principle, or the general term relationship with finances. So those are a couple of examples of what I mean by principles and your purpose statement within your principle. And how I got to it is really simple, but can also be hard. It takes time sometimes, and it takes a good atmosphere to get to that. So let me tell you a couple of things that I did to establish these purpose statements. First, I did the acknowledgement piece. I acknowledged that I was worth taking time to dream, and my dreams were worth the time to establish them, right? I took some time and wrote down the desires of my heart. Where is it that I really, really want to end up when it comes to my health? When it comes to my relationship with God, when it comes to my relationship with my finances, my friends, my family, my mind. Where is it that I want to go? And I do a couple other exercises, like writing my own. I've done like writing my own eulogy. Really thinking about, okay, if a friend of mine was to look at my life, what would they say about my relationship with all of those things, right? So I take the time to really establish the desires of my heart, and I write it down. I talked about it before in Habakkuk, where it says to write it down and make it plain so that others can run with it. Because when you make it plain, when you make it a part of your life, other people can see it and run with it, and they get excited and they start to live their life intentionally, right? So that's one thing that I do. But then I also ask questions of myself. And but first, before we do that, we got to establish the atmosphere. When I take time to do this and reestablish or reevaluate, because I actually look at this every quarter and take a deeper dive into it every year. I do also have something where I help you do that type of work. So if you want that, you can check out the links below. But get the atmosphere right. Put on some music. If you worship God, go ahead and put on some worship music. Get yourself in the mood. Get your room situated correctly, right? Like, if there's a certain way that you like to write things down, you know, the lights got to be a certain way, you got to have your notebook and all that kind of stuff, then establish that. Take a moment to establish the atmosphere. Put on that music. And then before you dive into the work, take a moment to think about what you're thankful for. One thing that I usually tell people to do is to look at each one of those 6 areas and think about a couple of things that you're thankful for with them. What are you thankful for with your family, your friends, your finances, your mind, your health, your God or God? What are you thankful for? And when you do that, you set an atmosphere that is ripe for dreaming and ripe for really establishing the purposes and the things that you want to see happen in life. Okay? So you do that. You ask yourself, okay, I got my dreams written down. And then you think about, okay, well, what does this dream really say about me? That's the next question. What does this dream say about me? How can I make it into something more succinct? And then finally, are there any quotes or Bible scriptures that can encompass that dream? So you notice from my examples, a lot of them kind of come from the Bible, because I love the Bible. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. So for instance, my health one really is just a summarization of the two scriptures that I talked about, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 and Proverbs 31:17. To honor the temple that God has placed me in and be an example of that honor. Like that, like it's really establishment of those verses. That my life be a testament of God's provision and love through building wealth and giving up my resources, right? So there's like tons of different verses and things like that that kind of speak to that. One verse that I've been really focused on is Deuteronomy 8:8, I believe, where it says that God has given us, no, that's not the right verse. What does it say? It says that he has given us the ability to make wealth, right? So that's something that I'm meditating on now. And then with my mind one, now that one's not even really established on any verses, but it's really established on encompassing the big areas that I want to see impact in my life. Right now I work in surveys, and I really want to make sure that I make an impact in survey management, and I make an impact in the healthcare sector and stuff like that because of what I do. I also am a project manager and all that kind of stuff. But then again, what I do here, my desire is to see people living intentionally and living like they got something that God has in store for them, right? So that's why I do that. So that's kind of how I establish it, right? So the big questions that you got to answer are, what are my dreams in those areas? And then what are some Bible verses, some quotes, some big ticket ideas that encompass my dream so that I can have a really succinct purpose statement. And that'll be something that I'll remember, and something that when I read it, I know what it's talking about, right? So that is what you got to do to establish your life and live by principle. Okay? So now we've acknowledged our dreams. Now it's time to live by principle. And then next week, we're going to execute by process. And we're going to talk about what that process is next week. And part of it actually is answering the question, well, where am I right now? And what am I going to do about it? We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. So tune in for the third step of intentional living. Now, if this really was your jam, you enjoyed this was helpful for you, go ahead and like the video. And if you really liked it, right, go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe so I know it's real, and I know that I'm giving you something that's going to transform your life. I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So have an awesome week wherever you are.